Hello everyone and welcome back to a new video. I just wanted to talk about my experience with Genesys. My local game store held its first tournaments this week for the new format. I attended and I just wanted to talk about the deck I played, my general experience, how my deck did, but also just the field that I saw, and then my thoughts on the format as a whole. So for the deck that I chose to play, I did end up playing Punk Virtual World. Not my first thoughts. I had originally intended to play like a three-axis deck between like Punk, Gold Pride, and Goblin Bikers. Some of my cards did not arrive on time, and that's kind of one of the casualties of the format being announced and then immediately being playable and tournaments being hosted and things, is that not everyone has all the cards they need. I had almost everything for this deck. I was missing exactly 2 Mind Procedures. So this was supposed to be a 60 card deck. It ended up being 58, just missing those 2 Mind Procedures. Not the worst thing in the world, but they are starters that I would have liked to have, and I would have put in this deck. But anyways, for the actual deck list, we play 3 Zayamin, of course. He is kind of the crux of the entire Punk engine. 3 Ogre Dances, 3 Foxy Tunes. Like, these are your starters in Punk. In Genesys, and I'll talk about this more in my thoughts about Genesys, you don't have E-Telly. Normally, the Punk engine has 12 starters for E-Telly. I am playing 1 copy in this deck at 40 points, which, again, I'll talk about that later, but 40 is completely insane because that's the same price as Graceful Charity, and, like, E-Telly is not Graceful Charity by any means. So, while I don't think it needs to be that, it should be like 20 or something, we have to play with how the game is right now. So we have 1 E-Telly and the 9 normal Punk starters. That just means our Punk engine's a little bit more, or a little bit less consistent than it normally would be. But, you know, 9 normal Punk starters, it's all good. Then we're playing 2 Rising Scale. I wasn't sure if I wanted to play the full playset or just the 1 searchable copy. I kind of flipped back and forth. With the lower Punk engine, I don't know if 3 is great. Just because if you see this card and you don't have any other Punk cards, it does nothing. I cut the difference at 2, and I think that served me pretty well. We've got the one-ofs, Shirakusai, Wagon, Deer Note, and Jam Extreme Session. Extreme Session is actually really cool in this deck and in a lot of psychic focus decks right now, especially, again, if I had those 2 extra Mind Procedures, because Extreme Session says if you pay life for a psychic monster's effect, you don't necessarily have to pay for a Punk monster's effect. So if you open Jam Extreme Session and you go, okay, play Jam Extreme Session, normal summon Mind Procedure, pay 2,000 to search E-Telly, you still get a draw off that, which is really, really cool. And I am playing a little bit more of a Psychic engine in this deck, even though it is a core of Punk and Virtual World. So that is the Punk engine in and of itself. Let's look at some Virtual World stuff. So for the Virtual Worlds, we are playing the full 3 Lulus. Lulu costs 3 points because they didn't want Virtual World to be able to make True King of All Calamities, sometimes called VFD if you don't know. VFD just is kind of an auto win, and Punk is one of the couple of decks that's very, very good at getting into it. That's why they slapped 100 points on VFD himself, and then 3 points on Lulu. Unfortunately, that means we are taxed 9 points for playing 3 of one of the best cards in the Virtual World. Oh well. We were playing 2 GGs. I kind of, you could play the full 3, but I'm playing 3 of the best at each level and 2 of the worst. That gives us a total of 10 names. So, like, I think that worked pretty well. And again, I'll talk about my actual experience with the deck after the profile. So, that's our 3s. And then we've got 3 Lilies and 2 Laulaus. Lily is the better one to actually see. Laulau Reborns, it gets better if you search it as part of a longer combo. It's fine. It's fine to see. If you open like Kowloon and Laulau, there's plenty of things you can do with that, or even like Lulu and Laulau is fine. But, it's not as good as the double Foolish Burial coming from Lily. So that is the actual Virtual World names. We do play 1 Nyan Nyan. So something cool that I haven't played this deck a lot since the new Punk support came out, even though I love both of these archetypes and I love this deck. I hadn't realized that Nyan Nyan can be Foolish Burialed off of Punk Jam Dragon Drive if you have, or if you are under Droll and Lockbird. So what that means is that, grabbing my Punk Jam Dragon Drive real quick, if you get drolled off of your first search, you can still normally with the Punk Engine. The Punk Engine is resilient enough to go into like a couple of things through droll. If you can get to Dragon Drive, you can bin Nyan Nyan and set up your chains such that Deer Note reborns a 3, and then the Nyan Nyan sees the 3 get reborn, which allows you to go into an Exes 3 or a Synchro 6. And the Synchro 6 actually matters quite a bit in this deck. I thought that was a very cool interaction that did come up multiple times when I was playing the deck. So, just very, very cool interaction that I thought is important to point out. So Nyan Nyan is putting in work. It does in a lot of decks. So then we play our 3 Kowloons. Kowloon is one of the best cards in the deck. You activate Kowloon, it lets you set any of our 2 Chuches or Kinglongs. You're always going for Chuche because Chuche is an actual interruption. Kinglong is just there as a Rhoda. But like Kowloon, place Chuche, and now you've got the best target on your field for those 10 virtual world names to start sending things. Very cool. So that is it for the virtual world package, and then we are playing a little bit of a psychic package, which is kind of interesting. So, like I said, I have 1 Mind Procedure and the 1 E-Telly. E-Telly costs 40, which sucks because it's the best extender in any Psychic deck, and it's not like a completely ridiculous card, especially because Psychics aren't a ridiculous archetype. But Mind Procedure can search it at the cost of 2,000 life. We pay life like crazy, and we want to pay life, so that's not really a bad thing. But like, you play the 3 of these if you have them. My other 2 are unfortunately in the mail, so that's what we had to run. Then I played 3 of the Psychic Blaster. I haven't seen this in a whole lot of deck lists, but in a deck like this where we have Procedure, we have Nyan Nyan, we have Lulu, we have the whole Punk Engine. If you haven't seen this card, it is a level 6 you can discard to summon a Psychic from hand. So, say we open these 2, you can go Blaster, discard to summon out Mind Procedure, and then once you get any other Psychic in the grave, Blaster can banish that to summon itself, and it's a level 6 body, which means it's very easy to make level 6 Synchros like this, which is very cool. So, I like Psychic Blaster a lot. I don't think I drew him a whole ton. I think I actually drew E-Telly more, which is kind of funny, because it's 1 versus 3. But the 1 game I did see him, he came in clutch, so, can't complain. Also, a casualty of the mail is my extension package. So, Hush Psychic Minister is fine. It's not perfect because some of the virtual world names are worms, but it's a level 3 that special summons itself from hand if you control a Psychic, and that's, most of the cards in this deck. Then we've got Wielder and Tracker. I think 3 Trackers is better. I only owned 1, and I had the 2 Wielders, so this is what I was going. But if you have 3 Trackers, probably just play that. The only real difference is that Wielder is a tuner, and Tracker is not, and we have a lot more tuners than non-tuners in this deck. But if you have a level 3, they just special summon themselves from hand, so that's pretty cool. So that is the little bit of a Psychic pack. Oh, one last thing is Teleport Fusion. If you have not read Teleport Fusion, it's a very cool card that allows you to fusion summon one of a couple monsters. We'll get into that in the extra decks by banishing the materials from field and grave, and then like we have some stuff that interacts with banishment, so that's not really getting rid of it. It's also a quick play, which is cool because that lets you banish the entire opponent's board on their turn, which is, hard to recover from for a lot of decks. So that's our Psychic package. And then for our non-engine, we're playing the 1 of Searchable Ghost Ogre. It is 5 points. 1 of Droll, which is 5 points. I would probably be playing, if I had more points, I would be playing more Drolls. I think that's where my extra points would go. But we are running exactly 99, and a lot of that is engine in this deck, which is why we're playing the kind of charity hand traps a lot of the charity interaction in this format. DD Crow is fine. I don't know that it mattered for me once the entire night. I did open it a couple of times. No, that's not true. It mattered once against Super Quant. I did banish one card against Super Quant, and that was like nail in the coffin in a game I was already winning. So it did come up. It was not terrible. I don't think it mattered any other time during the night. But when you have a high cost engine, you play what you can get. So that's these guys. Then I was playing 2 Dark Rulers. Dark Ruler is a charity board breaker. So are Mystical Space Typhoon. Fun fact, I went through all of my cards from middle school, and you can see these are first edition from structure decks that I just kind of happened to find from a pile of old cards. So, you know, seeing play again finally. Along with Cosmic Cyclones that did not come from my old pile of cards. So you may ask, okay, that's a lot of back row destruction. This right here, these 6 cards, were the absolute champion of the entire night, and I kind of had a feeling they would be. Like, popping field spells and continuous spells and traps, like, one of the things people have complained about this format already is that back row feels a lot stronger. It feels a lot stronger because you're not playing these 6 cards right here. These 6 cards are completely free. They don't have a point cost or anything. You can be playing these, and they are incredible. So, you know, just be aware. You should probably be playing MST, you should probably be playing Cyclone, even if you don't have Radiant Typhoon cards. But if you do, and you're not playing MST, what the hell's wrong with you? So that is it for the actual deck. Like I said, it's 58. I wish it was the 60. We didn't have the Mind Procedures. Oh well. So then we're on to the extra deck. So we're playing a Juju. He is a disruption that is kind of mediocre, but importantly, it is our bridge. If we open a Punk card and we do the full Punk combo uninterrupted, and we have any of the virtual world names, we can go into Juju at the end of the Punk combo and then say, like, throw Lao Lao, target Juju, summon Lao Lao, dump a card, and then we can do a whole bunch of virtual world stuff from there. So just very important to be able to start the virtual world. And also, one of the cool things about this deck is that, I'll talk about it when we get to Punch Jam Dragon Drive, but Juju, good card. Serene Psychic Sorceress, first time I actually have gotten to play with this card in person, and it was very good the entire night. So Serene Psychic Sorceress, you may not know because it just came out. It's a level 6 synchro, non-tuner. It's actually wholly generic, but when you summon it, you can pay 1,000 life to set a teleport from deck. Of course, that means you can get emergency teleport, but it's a quick play, so you can't use it immediately, but you can set teleport fusion, which you want to use on the opponent's turn anyways. You do not want to activate this card on your turn. So you can go into Psychic Sorceress, set teleport fusion, and then you, on the opponent's turn, have this set up to wipe the opponent's board, which is really cool. And because it sets, it gets around Droll. That came up multiple times during my tournament. Very, very nice card to have. Honestly, I was a little bit low on Serene Psychic Sorceress the first time I saw the card, but I've come around. I think she's quite good. She also bounces too when she's sent to grave, which means if you're using her as material on your turn, that doesn't happen. But if for some reason you bring her back or whatever on the opponent's turn and she gets, like, maybe you get uninterrupted, you have to end with her on your board, and then the opponent destroys her, you get to bounce to, which is very cool. Punch Jam Dragon Drive. Dragon Drive continues to be an insane card. So Dragon Drive can do a few things. Dragon Drive says that when it is synchro summoned or summoned by a Punk monster's effect, you can search any level 3 psychic. Doesn't have to be a Punk card. That means you can search Minister as an extender, Tracker as an extender, Wielder as an extender. You can also search Ghost Ogre just as an extra disruption. It's very, very cool. But even more interesting than any of that is you can Foolish Burial with it. So that means that if you get drolled, which Punk searches a lot, so Punk gets drolled almost immediately, you can dump Nyan Nyan, bring back a 3, like I mentioned earlier. Nyan Nyan sees a 3 hit the field and summons back from grave, which gives you either an Xyz 3 or gives you the material for Serene Psychic Sorceress. It's very, very cool. So, Dragon Drive is an amazing card. Like, I don't know how else to explain that. It is a very, very good, very, very useful card. And like the other cool thing I forgot to mention is that if you say go through the punk line, you have Psychic Tracker in hand. You can summon Psychic Tracker, go into Juju, and then off of Dragon Drive, instead of searching the tracker, you can search a Lulu. So now you have Juju set up and Lulu to search and bin and just do whole big virtual world combos. It's just so versatile. If you can get to Dragon Drive, you're in a good spot, especially because then it Zodiacs into our one of Punk Jam Fever, and Punk Jam Fever is in negate and draw. Like, you can't go wrong with the Punk extra deck stuff. It is very, very good. So, then we are playing a Shenshen. Shenshen is 20 points. This is where 20 points of ours went. It's not a macrocosmos, but anything sent from field to graveyard gets banished. I already mentioned I played against Super Quants. This doesn't do much against Super Quants, but if you're playing against something like Memento, this does a lot of work for the deck. And it also just comes back. Like, it is the big virtual world boss monster. You want to play a Shenshen if you can. It's not a bad option to have. If you don't want to spend the points on it, you could play like Stellar Wind Wolf Riot is a pretty good 9, and you want to have access to at least one 9. Speaking of which, Psychic Blaster. Psychic Blaster Mark II is our other 9. It's not that hard to make off of something like Serene Psychic Sorceress and any tuner, or like just the Virtual World engine in and of itself. And it can reborn a banished card, and it can banish a card from your grave to banish a card on the field. So it is follow-up, it helps with combos, it is disruption on the opponent's turn. I think this card gets sneered at a little bit because the new teleport package is like fine, but I think these are particularly good members of that archetype and particularly good support for psychics in general. Our other 20 points, this is the last pointed card in our deck, which puts us at a total of 99, is Psychic and Punisher. Punisher is giant and unaffected and will win you the game. It won me multiple games last night. Play Psychic and Punisher. I don't know how I have to explain that. Amazing Dragon is cool. It can bounce a bunch of stuff or reborn something, and then you can also Zodiac into Jam Fever over it. There are different combos you can do depending on which of these you have access to and like what extension you have access to, but either way you end on your negate and draw, which is cool. Jura. Jura is a very good card that I don't think has been seeing as much play as maybe he should. He is a life gain boss monster at level 11. You gain 300 life anytime the opponent activates a card effect, but then you can pay 1500 and tribute him to destroy all face-up monsters or spell traps your opponent controls. Both of those effects are quite useful. More often you'll probably pop the monsters. If it was all spell traps and not just face-up ones, that would be even better. But like, it can recoup some of your losses in case you pay too much life, or you can just make him against maybe a burn deck very early, and then you're basically set. The opponent's just not going to be able to kill you. Very good card that I don't think sees enough play. Then we play a one of Totem Bird. Totem Bird is a spell trap negate, and it's actually a very, very good card. You just need 2 level 3 wins to make it, which means roughly the only decks that can make this are like Magispector, Virtual World, and Radiant Typhoon. Those are the only decks that can make this, but it is a spell trap negate, and so you should be playing it if you can make it. Then we play 1 Evolzar Lars and 1 Goblin's Crazy Beast as our 6s of choice. Lars gets around the fact that we, alongside Totem Bird, I suppose, these two get us through evenly, or other like spell trap removal. These are the only things we have in the deck that protects us from those, but they are not terribly difficult to make. They are both like negates for spell traps. Lars can also do monsters. Lars is weird. He targets something on field to negate, similar to an Apophis trap. So you can't hit a hand trap, but you can hit an evenly matched because it hits the field at some point, whatever. Goblin's Crazy Beast is a pet card of mine because it can remove continuous spell traps and field spells to remove their effects by attaching them to himself. And then it also has Dingirsu's effect. I guess the more modern thing would be Ryziel Detonator, where if one or more of your cards would be destroyed, you can just attach a material from Goblin's Crazy Beast instead, and it's not once per turn. So he just protects your board, and he can eat spell traps. Like, just a very good card, and it also can come back from the grave if you're playing goblins. We don't have other goblins in this deck, so we can't use that effect. But either way, protection plus spell trap removal is pretty solid. Then we play, of course, Rising Cart for the Punk engine, allows you to fuse into this and then fix the 2 punks that you have on field, like switch them out for any other ones. Then we are playing our Teleport Fusion cards. So if you're not aware, Teleport Fusion, quick play spell, lets you summon one of these guys on the opponent's turn. You normally want to go into Axon Kicker here, or Absolute Axon Kicker, they're all Axon Kickers. So you want to go into Absolute because when he is summoned, you can pay 2,000 life to banish all cards your opponent controls, all face-up cards. Unfortunately, it won't wipe a full row of back row from Odeon or something. But all face-up cards get banished, and then when it's sent to the grave, you can banish him to summon Axon Kicker Oracle. Axon Kicker Oracle is big. He gains 1,000 for each thing that was used as material form. So if you do hard fuse into him, which is one, I did that exactly once during my tournament, you get a bunch of attack until the end of turn, and that actually mattered the one time I did it, which was pretty cool, because the opponent had a 3,000 attack body, he's 29 naturally, and he was 39 when I did that, which, pretty cool. Couldn't just beat over him, especially considering he can negate summons and banish the monsters, which is pretty cool. He can also banish your Teleport Fusion when he gets sent to grave to summon himself back. Just all around, very, very good, very solid card alongside Axon Kicker, Absolute Axon Kicker. These are very, very good boss monsters that people are sleeping on because they still think that the new psychic stuff is bad, and the main deck monsters leave something to be desired, but the extra decks are very, very good. So I'm kind of using the fact that we are a bunch of psychics anyways to make use of these monsters. Cool, cool. So now I want to take a minute to talk about how the deck did before I keep going. I went 2-1, which is not bad. Like, it was just a 3-round tournament. It was not a huge one. So I went 2-1, not too bad. But round 1 was up against Super Quant. So Super Quant, if you're not aware, and you're going to hear me explain a lot of archetypes here. Super Quant is an Xyz deck that's very good at getting to its giant tower. It was really cool because I had a 25-minute game 1 where he got into his giant tower, I got to Psychic End Punisher, I beat over his giant tower with my giant tower, which Super Quan is based on Sentai's, like your Power Rangers and things, so the fact that I made my giant villain to destroy his Megazord was pretty awesome. We were both laughing about that. It was just a very, very good, very fun back-and-forth game, which kind of was the theme of the night, is that it was a lot of very good back-and-forth, grindy games, lots of incremental advantage, lots of decisions for the better player to make good decisions and win the game off the back of that, which I thought was such a cool thing about this format. I'm glad it feels like it's encouraging that. There's only one game I had where it felt like it was, just like random number generator. The one person just rolled better and they won. It's fine though. So the rest of the night was very, very good. But I was up against Super Quant. He actually won the first game where I beat over his guy by modulating the level of 5 monsters to 1 and going into Lyrilusk Assembled Nightingale to swing for 5,000 direct. Not what I expected to come out of Super Quant, but it killed me. It won through a seemingly unbeatable board state, so, props to that guy. That was super cool opponent as well, just very good guy. but then I ended up winning both games 2 and 3 because I went first for game 2, and I just I set up Shen, and Shen is pretty good against super quants. They do use a lot of graveyard effects. Some of their stuff sends from deck to graveyard, so that all still worked. But I did banish enough of his cards that he couldn't quite cinch the victory. And then game 3, he kind of bricked. So, it is what it is, unfortunately. But generally, good game. So that was match 1 against Super Quants. Ended up taking that one. Match 2 was up against Mimighoul. Unfortunately, the guy kind of bricked a little bit, but we had a couple of good games regardless, where I take out his dungeon. He still has some interruptions on board. That was one of the matches where the MST and Cyclones were clutch, like absolutely key to me winning that match. I won that one, and then we get to round 3, and match 3 was up against Shining Sarcophagus, a deck that is another one that kind of is a joke. People think it's not very good, people don't like it very much, but it's a lore deck, it's a Yugi deck, people really enjoy the anime style of decks, so I actually ended up losing that match. It was a very good one. We went 1-1 to start. He won the first game, I won the second game. It was very funny. I won my game when he... No, actually, I won game 1. My bad. I won game 1, he won game 2. So I won game 1 on the back of he won the die roll. He set up his entire board. If you're not aware with Shining Sark, the entire deck relies on having Shining Sarcophagus on the field to actually play the game. None of their cards do anything if you don't have Shining Sark on the field. I happen to open 1 MST and 1 Cosmic Cyclone in my nearly 60 card deck, because I play 6 copies of these. So on draw phase, I went MST, target your Shining Sark. Shining Sark cannot be destroyed by monster effects, but it can be by spells and traps. So MST, target your Shining Sark. He negates it because they make 1 spell negate as part of their end board. Cool. Cyclone, target your Shining Sark. Banish it. All of his entire board goes offline, and I just can OTK him from there. So that was a really funny game, and just a good game for displaying that these are very good cards in the meta, guys. Like Mimighoul and Shining Sark both hate these cards, and Odeon's one of the best decks right now. You can Cosmic Cyclone their negates during the draw phase. Their negates only work during the main phase, guys. Be aware of that. Use these cards. So that was game 1. Game 2, he went first again, and I actually still drew exactly 1 MST. He negated that, and my hand was pretty bad. I had not much in the way of starters, so he ended up taking that. And then unfortunately in game 3, he shiftered me. Shining Sark is a shifter deck. That's the one that kind of felt bad, because my hand was a lot of virtual worlds. So here's the thing. Virtual worlds don't mind being banished, but they all say, if this card is in your hand, you can target 1 card you control, send a card to the graveyard from deck. If you're not aware, you cannot activate effects that send a card to the graveyard under Shifter, because that card cannot hit the graveyard. It is impossible for it to actually resolve correctly, whereas a discard can happen under Shifter. You can discard a card and it'll just get banished, but you cannot send to graveyard. Unfortunately, the cards I happened to have were Lulu, and I had a Foxy Tune. Foxy Tune is another one that does not say it discards itself, it has to send to graveyard. So you cannot activate a Foxy Tune under Shifter. So while we don't mind having our cards banished, really, we don't use the graveyard too terribly much, and we actually have some effects that are relevant in banishment, we need to send cards to graveyard to function. We couldn't do that, and our deck just folded to Shifter. Which is a good segue into what I want to talk about next, was how that meta felt. So I do think Shifter's going to be a big part of the meta, so a deck like this may not be the best thing in the world, one that folds to Shifter, unless you're playing a bunch of called buys, but this deck costs too many points to play a bunch of called buys. So maybe look into something that maybe isn't a Shifter deck itself, but plays well under Shifter, because that is a thing that can happen and will happen. So be aware of that. DD Crow. Also, DD Crow is a hand trap. It's a charity hand trap that a lot of people are going to be playing because they can't play much else in this format. And like, you have to expect that you are going to get DD Crowed. So do not rely over much on the graveyard right now. I don't think it's a good thing to do. Outside of that, I was pleasantly surprised by exactly how diverse that meta was. The only repetition we had in our tournament was we had two Mimigul players, but they were on pretty different builds of the deck. And like, I feel like the Mimigul representation is just people hanging on to the last possible floodgates. It's just people who want their auto wins trying to play an auto win deck. But Mimigul is a lot more fair than other Floodgate decks because if you take out their field spell, then their Floodgate goes away and they're just reliant on doing flip monster shenanigans. And that's not the worst thing. It's actually a very fun deck. It's just people hoping that, okay, well, I can fill up your board and it's harder for you to link monsters off here, or I can stop you from normal summoning and attacking, things like that. Outside of that, yeah, Super Quant, Shining Sark, those are not decks you see a whole ton. I thought that was really cool. It was very good matches. I don't think if I had my other two cards for this deck, the results would have been any different. It was fun. I love this deck. I really love this deck. But, God, Shifter is a pain. They might, honestly, because Shifter came out at 5, they bumped it to 10. Because it's so good and it's so, like, metagame warping, they might bump it up to, like, 20 or something, and then it will not be as readily a Shifter meta. You'll still run into it once in a while, someone who, like, really likes Exo Sisters or something. But Mimigul is a Shifter deck. Shining Sark is a Shifter deck. So, like, 2 of the 3 I played against are Shifter decks, and that kind of sucks. So, I don't know. Maybe don't play this until they bump the cost of Shifter and maybe reduce the cost of E-Telly, which is the last thing that I want to bring up. What is my overall thought of the deck? Or, what is my overall thoughts about the format in general? And I think the format is a really cool idea, and I think it needs a little bit of work before it's going to be good. So the point values are kind of all over the place. There are decks that I feel are good. Pearly, I think, has good point values. You can play a full play set of Pearly cards, but you don't get to play good hand traps. Then you're playing the welfare interaction like we are, which I think is perfectly fair. If you want to play a good top-tier strong deck, you should be paying most, if not all, of your points for your deck. I don't know why E-Telly, which is the best extender in one of, I don't want to say one of the worst, but not a particularly good monster type, is the same price as Graceful Charity. That doesn't make sense to me, and it doesn't make sense to anyone I've talked to. This is a very good card. It should be 20 points maximum. Or not even maximum. I think this should be exactly 20 points. I think I should be able to play 2 to 3 of these if I'm willing to dedicate the points to doing so. 40 is insane. 40 is not right for this. And for other decks, things like Labyrinth. I don't even play Labyrinth. I don't like Labyrinth. Why are 3 of their core cards 33 apiece? You can play 1 of each Big Welcome Lab, Regular Welcome Lab, and Lady. Lady is a 1 of anyway, so you'll only probably be playing 1 Lady. That's not a big deal. You need to have more copies of the Welcome Labs for that deck to function. Like, it was kind of functioning before they added a point cost to transaction rollback. Now that there's a point cost on transaction rollback, that deck is unplayable. It does not need to be so expensive. And there's a lot of decks like that. Why is Snake Eyes so expensive? I get that Snake Eyes was really good, and they're afraid of it being really good, but Snake Eyes was really good because of generic link material. It doesn't have links to go into now. It is just a going second board breaker, put your opponent's monsters in the back row deck, which is cool, and I don't play it. I have friends that like it. It should not be as expensive as it is. It does not make sense. So point adjustments are absolutely needed. Sorry, I rambled about that. long-winded way to say that there are point adjustments that need to be done. But I think the point system is very, very cool. I think it is a good thing for the game. I think it is a good thing for the format. Just, God, it needs a lot of work right now. I look at that list and I'm like, why can't you play Memento? Like, 3 of Memento's most important cards are 33 each. And I get the Memento's a good deck, but like they used a lot of links. One of the reasons it was as good of a deck is that they can go into Fiendsmith, and you can't go into Fiendsmith in this format. So why is Memento so kneecapped? It's a little bit weird to me. Things like that. There's just a lot of archetypes that aren't available due to excessive point costs that I don't think are terribly detrimental to the format if they were playable. So in conclusion, points are a little bit weird. I think the point system is incredible, but it needs a lot of fine-tuning before it will be perfect. And the format itself feels so good, guys. If you haven't had a chance to go play it, it's lots of grindy back and forth games. Of course, there's people like the Mimighoul players and people playing freaking Ojamas trying to lock your board down before you ever get a chance to play, who are not confident in their ability to play the game well enough, and they feel the need to win in one big haymaker, like with a floodgate, something like that. There's people like that still trying to do their best. I have a feeling that those will get weeded out over time, and then the format's just going to be this like back and forth grindy skill based matchups that are super, super fun. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. I hope this was insightful. I don't know about I hope you liked it, because it was just me rambling with cards on the table. But I hope this was insightful to the new format if you hadn't gotten a chance to play it. It is a very diverse one, so don't worry about waiting for like meta results and tournament things and trying to build the best deck. The best deck is Odeon right now, almost everyone knows that. But it's not the best deck by a country mile. There are plenty of ways to out it, and I feel like if more people are playing MST and Cosmic Cyclone, Odeon gets a lot worse. People are just like afraid to play those cards because they're like, but no, those are bad cards, aren't they? Well, not in this format, my guy. They cost nothing. You like my carry sleeves? I like these sleeves. They're Konami official, so they start to peel, but that's why I just use them for my extra deck. And they're very cute and good. But anyways, that's going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you liked it, and I hope you have a nice day. Well, bye.